What's going on, guys? This is Hassan from The Spiritual Walks. I hope you're doing absolutely amazing. On this channel, we explore spirituality and self-development as we are all on a journey towards truth. In today's video, I'd like to speak about the concept of time and spirituality. Now, whatever you turn towards, whether it's a book, science, religion, someone's opinion, there is always a different definition or interpretation of what time really is. But today we are going to try and investigate it to verify the concept of time or what time really is experientially. Because we've all heard that time is a concept, time is man-made and all of these things, but how do we actually verify that and see that in our everyday experience? And I feel like the best way to enter this type of exploration is to present to you a particular scenario that is very plausible to happen in all our lives, and to then observe this scenario and see what we can learn about time. And so the scenario goes like this. Let's imagine that you are in a party of, let's say, 20 or so individuals. There might be some music in the background, people are standing, sitting, eating, speaking, laughing, and all of a sudden an individual in this party feels a bit nauseous, dizzy, falls and collapses on the floor. So everyone around is looking at this individual. Oh my God, what has happened? This person has just fainted. Let's imagine what it's like for both the person that has fainted, that has now collapsed on the floor, and what it's like for the bystanders, the individuals that are actually observing this phenomenon take place. The people that are bystanding, surrounding, the way they feel time or the flow of the moment, it should be happening as it's happening. Now, however, when we observe this person who's fainted get up after 15-20 seconds, they look around and they see all of the people in this party surrounding their body. They are confused. They feel confused. They look around as though something weird has happened. They are weirdly realizing that they are on the floor, but they don't actually know what's happened. Now, what is the experience that took place for the person that's fainted? Really, the experience is that as soon as they fainted, they also woke up. So it was a flash or an instant. Now, what does this particular scenario suggest to us about time? Does it not tell us that time is relative? Now, another scenario where you could experience the relativity of time is when you are having fun, when you are engaging in, let's say, an extremely interesting conversation, or I hope this particular video, time might feel like it's flowing very quickly. However, if you're waiting for the dentist or you are waiting for a particular appointment or something, you might feel like time is slower than it has ever been. And so we can see and feel and experience the warp of time, perhaps the discontinuity of time in moments such as sleep or fainting, but really it's relative. It's different in our individual lives, throughout our life. The way time is experienced is different, and also different individuals surely also experience time very differently. So this then begs the question, why is time relative? What is allowing us to experience time in a different way, in a warped way, in a quicker or a slower way? Upon posing this question, the thing that I then discovered is that time is linked with activity. So as mentioned, whether you are fainting, whether you are standing in a party, whether you are waiting, whether you are having fun, time, the concept of time or the experience of the flow of time is linked to activity. Activity implies movement. So when we are engaging in certain things, there is a movement taking place within space. Whereas if we just have a clock and we are looking at this clock tick away very slowly, it feels like time or the hour that we have looked at the clock seems like it's going so much slower than if in that hour we went out shopping to buy some groceries for the weekend and then came back. Now, does that mean then that if we are absolutely still, that time stops? Does that mean if there is absolutely no activity, time stops? And this is something that we have to experiment with. Theoretically, it may seem so, based on what we've said earlier, but we're not so much interested in theory because theory itself is also movement. It's also something that tampers with the flow or our experience of time. So we have to look at this experientially. And this is where it gets extremely interesting and hopefully also very liberating for you. Now, even though in certain situations our bodies are at rest and are still, our mind isn't. Our mind is constantly active, constantly creating scenarios, creating ideas, having a flow of thoughts, imagination, memories from the past, imagination or speculations of the future. There is a constant motion taking place, a constant activity. And then when looking very closely at this activity, we notice and experience and recognize that there is movement, because that which is observing all the movement or knowing that there is movement taking place, realizing and recognizing the flow of thoughts taking place, is unmoving, is still. So I could be sitting here right now thinking about how hungry I am, and I could be extremely attached to this notion because I can physically feel the hunger and I just can't wait until I eat food, and so time might feel slower. However, in a different instance, I could think that it's quite nice outside. The weather is sunny, it's warm. However, I'd rather sit down and film this video. And so there is less of an attachment to the notion that it's warm and sunny outside. So really the relationship or the link between how activity and movement warps the concept of time is our level of identification with that activity, is our level of entanglement or involvement with that level of activity. Because you could be sat here and thinking 1,001 thoughts, but if you don't care about any of these thoughts, or you are not entangled and getting involved and tripping up and identifying with these thoughts, it doesn't have an effect on the flow of time. However, if we are attached to one particular thought, it may speed up, slow down. It will definitely change the experience of how we perceive time. Now, this is why time is referred to as a concept, an idea. It's something that we create. Through our identification with thoughts, movements, and activities, we are creating a different sense and perception of time. And so this is why we refer to time as a man-made concept. It's relative to each individual. It's different for each individual. It's different at certain times within your own individualistic life. Now, where does this all tie into spirituality? Let me tell you. The very practices of spirituality involve understanding and observing activity. That's all it really is. It's observing activity to the extent where we begin to discern and understand and see and realize what this activity is. The biggest activity or the biggest phenomenon taking place at the moment is life. And so spirituality in a way is a means to understand life. And so we observe life, we observe these movements so that we may learn or recognize or realize something about these movements and see how that which is realizing or recognizing or observing these movements and activities fits into this very motion or this very movement of life to begin with. In a way, spirituality is a means to enhance your perception so that you may see things more clearly, so that you are not easily entangled by the identification of the movements, so that you see the holistic picture of what is taken on. And so having said that, one very noteworthy practice within spirituality is prayer or meditation. And so when we observe and look at this practice, what is really taking place then? When you are in meditation, you are to observe the movements of your thoughts, the movements of the mind, the movement of the body, the movement of whatever is moving in that moment. And you do this in meditation because it's actually impossible to meditate. Meditate is not something that you can do. Because if I go and sit down to meditate and I'm doing the meditation, in a way, doing implies that there is an activity taking place. And so this way, meditation doesn't make sense or doesn't work. Because meditation is purely the observation of whatever activity is taking place. So if I just come in and introduce a new activity, I haven't really done much, because that newly introduced activity is now my focal point. It's now the thing that I am focusing on at the moment. And so observing the activity is true meditation, is true recognition that there is movement taking place, whether I like it, dislike it, because my notion and opinions and judgments of whether I like certain things or not is also an activity, is also a movement, right? And so meditation is just observation, observing what is taking place. And the point that observes what is happening in this moment, that is an unmoving, inactive point in a way. Because think about it. If a train is moving on the track at, let's say, 20 miles an hour, and you are a relatively quick runner and you can also run alongside the train at 20 miles an hour, when looking at the train, it seems as though the train is not moving. Because you, as the point of reference, as the point of observation, is also moving. However, if you are stationary, then you are able to see the movement of the train. You can see the train moving. And so the way we realize all this activity, the way we are able to perceive that there's a thought taking place, the way we are able to perceive and recognize that there's a body, is because there is an ultimate, absolute point that is unmoving, that is untouched by the activity. If it's touched by the activity, then surely it's also active. If we are able to recognize this unmoving, untouched point, recognize its presence through the recognition of activity, then something beautiful may unfold within you. And that is the realization that time is truly a concept. It's a man-made concept. We attach ourselves to time because it holds so much utility. It makes sense. It's useful to have the concept of time. We assign ourselves different deadlines, but at the same time, we also assign ourselves different goals. A lot of suffering comes with the concept of time. We feel as though in this moment in our life, we might feel like we are behind in life. We feel like we haven't achieved certain things that we've wanted to achieve, and so we are lacking in life. But really, you are that point of observation that is unmoving, inactive, and is untouched by any of the moving, active parts or components of life. So in the end, what I'm trying to say is that you are eternal, my friend. You are eternal. If only you allow yourself to rest and recognize this unmoving point within you. And even for me to say that it's a point doesn't make sense, because it's kind of an area, it's localized. I'm implying that it's in a particular location. It's not really a location. It's just the very recognition of the activities that take place. It's the recognition that there is that which is recognizing that there is activities and movements taking place. So then, the exploration or the investigation into the concept of time can lead you to a liberating and freeing place if only we see it. If only we stop identifying with the activity that takes place, which is the reason why time seems to speed up, slow down, warp, and change the whole time. If we identify with that which is realizing and observing the activity to begin with, that is your true self, that is your true nature. It's not the notion of who you think you are, really. It's not the notion of how you think time moves. It's not your thoughts. It's not your memories. It's none of that. These are all activities that are perceived. And as long as something is perceived, you cannot be that thing. You cannot be that. And so if we let go of the identification with these thoughts and concepts and beliefs, we are able to come back home and see time for what it truly is. Now, I do feel like this video may have been a mouthful. It may have been very simple to understand. It may have been slightly complex. But either way, I'd love to hear what you guys have to say. Now, thank you so much for watching this video. I really hope that you've gained some insight from this. And since you are still here, I'd like to assume that you've really enjoyed this video. So I'm also very sure that you might enjoy this particular video here. It's closely related to this. And aside from that, I really hope I see you on the next video. This is Hassan from The Spiritual Walks, and we are together on a journey towards the truth.